Apple aficionados. We're going to be talking about some exciting stuff today, actually pretty geeky stuff. We're going to be talking about cultivar names, plant patents, and trademarks. Yes, indeedy. Let's start off with the cultivar name. The cultivar name is the name that the breeder or discoverer gives the variety, and this is part of the scientific name of the apple. And the scientific nomenclature goes the generic name, the specific name, and the cultivar of it. And so for black twig, it would be Malus pumila black twig. Notice the Malus has a capital M, pumila has a small p, and black twig is in parentheses. This is the very specific nomenclature that the scientific community, and also when you're importing this variety into, say, a foreign country, they will want to know this scientific name of the apple. Next, we'll go over plant patents. Say you're a breeder or discoverer and you go through a lot of trouble to either breed this variety or discover this variety, and you want to recoup some of the monies that you've spent on this. You could patent this plant with a plant patent. And the way to do this is you have to prove a couple things. First of all, that you're the owner of the discoverer. Second of all, that it's not already patented. And third of all, that this is unique. In other words, it's different than something that's already out there or something that's already patented. A plant patent is good for about 20 years, actually exactly 20 years to the day that the patent is awarded. Now, if you're trying to propagate a variety and you want to know whether the patent is still in place or not, Google Patents is usually the easiest way to do a patent search. There are other search engines for it, but that's usually the easiest, but it's still has some kinks in it, still has some bugs in it, so you need to do a pretty thorough search before you start propagating this illegally sometimes if it's already still under patent. Now, because some licenses are patented, sometimes it will help us in our apple search when we're going into an old orchard and we're trying to figure out what varieties are in that orchard by looking at the apples. Say I'm in an orchard, looks like it was planted in the 1920s, 1930s. If I find Golden Delicious in that orchard, I know that the orchard owner was ordering from the Stark Brothers catalog, because once Golden Delicious was released, Stark Brothers had the patent on this, and they made a big deal of them buying the tree and the rights to this tree from the original owner. And they built a cage around it and had an alarm on it to keep people from stealing signwood and propagating their own trees. And each tree that came out, they had a tag on it saying, this tree is trademarked, this tree is patented underneath your agreement, and if you start propagating this illegally, we will prosecute you. And we have won every case that we've taken to trial. And so I know that the owner of this orchard bought this tree from the Stark Brothers catalog, so I can look through the other pages of the Stark Brothers catalog as a basis for me to start trying to identify the rest of these trees that are in the orchard. Now, if you want to grow a patented variety, a lot of times you can get licensed by the license holder. For a while, we were distributing Gold Rush while it was still under patent, and we signed a license agreement with Purdue, Rutgers, and University of Illinois to be a licensee of them, and we paid $1 royalty for each tree that we would graft and sell. And so once that patent expired, then we wouldn't have to be paying that license fee anymore, but you can be a licensee for some of these patent holders. If it's a club variety, you're not going to be able to be a licensee unless you are part of that club, and for a lot of these club varieties, unless you're a Stemmelt or one of these big growers, you're not going to be able to get into the club. Say you're a breeder and you go through all the trouble to breed these varieties, and they may not always have a common name. If you're breeding, like you have 100,000 trees that you're under development right now, you're not going to give a specific name to each tree. Usually the trees will have a number, and like NY 46, 21, 22. In other words, it's the New York or the Geneva breeding station, block 46, row 21, tree 22. And it will become that all the way through testing and trials and stuff until finally it's time to release this. Oh, this is great, we want to market this apple. Then you turn it over to the marketing department. And the marketing department does focus group studies, and they do trials and testing, and they'll sit around the table with slices of this apple there, and they'll munch on it, and they'll try to think, what name does this conjure up that makes people think this name and want to buy this apple? And they'll come up with spiffy marketing names like Envy, Jazz, Kiku, Opal, Pizzazz, Pinata. Actually, I don't know about that last name. I don't know if I'd name an apple after something that you beat with a stick. But anyway, they'll come up with a spiffy marketing name and give it this marketing name that they will trademark. Now, even though the Cultivar name is freely used by anybody who's selling or propagating this apple, the trademark is limited by the company for the company's use. There's a couple requirements for a trademark to keep it legally in place. First of all, you have to use it. It seems like a no-brainer, but that's one of the requirements. And second of all, you have to defend it. In other words, if somebody starts marketing an apple, their own apple, and it uses your trademark, you have to bring them to court to defend your trademark. If you do these two things, the trademark pretty much goes on indefinitely, even after the patent expires. And so we have the situation like we have with Pink Lady right now. Pink Lady is a trademark name given to Crips Pink apples that are grown to the standards and specifications of the Pink Lady Apple Growers Association. The only people in those association or in that group or that club can call their apples Pink Lady. Now any schmuck right now, because the patent expired already, can grow Crips Pink, which is what Pink Lady apples actually are. That's the cultivar name of it. But they can't call them Pink Lady unless they belong to that group. And so they could call them Crips Pink. And you hold up a Crips Pink and you hold up a Pink Lady, and a lot of times they're identical, they taste identical and stuff. And so I don't know how much there is to gain or stuff from the Apple Association. Now some marketing people did the fatal flaw of naming their apple the same cultivar name as the trademark name. Honeycrisp is one of these. It was bred by the University of Minnesota. It went through a lot of trouble, a lot of expense to do it. And over the life of the patent, they made about $8 million on this. But once the patent expires, anybody can grow Honeycrisp and call it Honeycrisp. Now there's some issues with this because, say, they grow lousy Honeycrisps. And so, like around here, Honeycrisp is a fine apple. I know it's a fine apple, and I've had some excellent examples of it. Honeycrisp should be red with green stripes at the least, but the ones we see in the store around here are green as a Granny Smith and maybe a little red striping to them, and they're sour as can be because the grower gets in a hurry and picks them way ahead of their time, way before the full flavor is developed, and this hurts the Honeycrisp brand, and they have no control over it. And so the next big thing that they introduced was a apple called Sweet Tango, and they introduced this as a club variety. That's the next thing we're going to be going over. Is a club variety is where the grower or the breeder, the developer, strictly controls the growing and the marketing of this fruit. And the way they did with Sweet Tango is they did it as a club variety where you have to be members of the co-op in order to grow this fruit, and you don't own the trees once you start growing it. You license the trees. The co-op keeps control of the trees in perpetuality, and they invite certain growers to grow this, or you have to apply for it, and they don't let everybody grow it, which is a point of contention because University of Minnesota is a public university, and there's some Minnesota growers who were blocked out because they weren't big enough or didn't have the track record that the breeders or the club holders wanted, and they were blocked out. And they were like, hey, this variety was developed at a public university using public funds, and here we are, citizens of Minnesota, and we're not able to access this, business holders in Minnesota, and we're not able to get this variety. And so it made kind of a stink, and I have sympathies on both sides. I know why University of Minnesota wants to do this. First of all, to control the quality of this so that the brand's not damaged, and then also to control the marketing, to make sure that some sectors of the country isn't flooded with apples, which brings the price down. So there you have it. I hope this clears up some of the confusion between cultivar names, trademarks, and patents. If you like what you're seeing, please, as always, like and subscribe, and we'll be with you again with more Apple aficionado stuff.